What are you doing here? The deep voice thundered through the marble bathroom, cutting through the hiss of the running shower like a blade. Amora froze. Her trembling hands clutched the towel she'd just picked from the rack, a thick, white towel embroidered with gold initials, AO. Her mind screamed, "Oh God, what have I done?" She had stepped into the wrong door, the billionaire's private bathroom. And there he was, Adrienne Owens. Half Nigerian, half American. The man whose name could make an entire boardroom go silent. The same man whose imported cologne was worth more than her entire year's salary. She could see him now, droplets of water glistening on his chest, the faint steam curling around him like smoke around fire. His eyes, sharp, shocked, and furious, locked onto hers. I'm sorry, sir," she stammered, stumbling backward, slipping on the slick marble floor. I thought this was the staff washroom." Adrienne grabbed a towel, wrapping it around his waist, his accent rolling between American smoothness and Lagos sharpness. "You thought this was the staff washroom?" His disbelief was thunder. "Do you usually bathe in bathrooms with gold faucets and imported candles? Miss, what's your name again?" Her voice broke. "Amora, sir. Amora Johnson." He exhaled slowly, jaw tightening. "Miss Johnson, I suggest you leave. Now." She didn't wait for him to say it twice. She bolted out of the bathroom, heart pounding so loud she could hear it in her ears. The hallway stretched like a tunnel of shame, polished, echoing, endless. "My life is finished," she thought. "He'll fire me. I'm done. Hello, family. Welcome back. Before we go deeper into this story, I have a small but heartfelt request. Please subscribe. Your support is what keeps these stories alive. Through every heartbreak, every victory, and every twist of fate, we build a family of listeners who believe in second chances and in stories that heal. And if you're watching from anywhere in the world, Lagos, New York, Nairobi, let us know in the comments. We're one family here. Now, back to the story. Outside the grand hallway of Owen's mansion, Lagos glittered through the rain-soaked windows. The sky rumbled low, like it too had witnessed her humiliation. Amora's slippers squelched on the marble floors as she ran toward the staff quarters. Her face burned with embarrassment, her hands shaking. She didn't mean to enter that bathroom. She really didn't. She'd only gone in to replace the used towels before the guests returned from the charity dinner. But all those hallways looked the same doors, same lamps, same smell of expensive air freshener that made her dizzy. And now, the man who paid her salary had seen her in the most vulnerable, humiliating way imaginable. In the bathroom upstairs, Adrienne stood still, water still dripping from his hair. His reflection stared back at him from the massive mirror, the same reflection the media called the golden heir. But right now, he didn't feel golden. He felt unsettled. Something in the maid's eyes had struck him. The terror, yes, but beneath it, something else. Dignity. A kind of quiet fire. "Amora Johnson," he murmured under his breath. "Who are you, really?" He turned off the shower completely, wrapped himself tighter in the towel, and walked to the window. The rain outside beat against the glass in rhythmic fury. Down below, he could see her, small, shivering, drenched in shame, running across the courtyard toward the staff quarters. Something inside him twisted. He'd been humiliated before, yes. He'd been betrayed, used, even mocked in business and love. But this accident, didn't feel like humiliation. It felt like the start of something he couldn't name. Meanwhile, in the staff quarters, Amora sat on her narrow bed, still in shock. The other maids whispered from across the room. "Did you hear? She entered Ogre Adrienne's bathroom by mistake. She's finished. He doesn't forgive nonsense like that. Chai, that girl's village people have finally reached Lagos." Amora pressed her palms over her ears. She didn't need to hear more. But even as she tried to silence the noise, his image wouldn't leave her mind. His broad shoulders, the calm anger in his eyes, the strange stillness that followed the storm in his voice. "Why did I look back?" She scolded herself. "Why didn't I just leave faster?" She curled up, trembling. The scent of his cologne still lingered faintly on her uniform, cedar, mint, and something darker. For the first time in her life, Amora wished she could disappear. Upstairs, Adrienne couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her again, startled, proud, fragile yet strong. He poured himself a glass of whiskey and sat by the window, watching the rain fall harder. He told himself it was just curiosity. Just a mistake. Just an employee. But deep down, he knew better. And as the night deepened over Lagos, both of them, The billionaire in his marble room and the maid in her tiny quarters lay wide awake, thinking about the same accident that neither could forget. An accident that was about to change everything. The sun rose slowly over Victoria Island, slicing through the morning mist with lazy golden fingers. But inside Owen's mansion, peace had not yet returned. The gossip had started before sunrise. One maid had seen Amora running down the corridor, another swore she saw ogre Adrienne half-naked in the hallway, and by breakfast time, the story had grown wings. She entered his bathroom, whispered Nkechi, pouring hot tea for Madame Bisi, the head housekeeper. Entered Ku. Bisi raised her brows, her voice dropping to a dramatic hush. Entered how? As in entered. Nkechi said, eyes wide. They said she saw him naked. Ah, Amora is finished. Totally finished. The laughter that followed carried down the hallway like music from the wrong station, loud, ugly, and out of tune. Amora could hear it all from the laundry room. Her hands shook as she folded a pile of freshly pressed towels. Every whisper felt like a slap. Every giggle burned like acid on her skin. They don't even know the truth, she thought. It was a mistake. Just a mistake. But in this house, mistakes became headlines. The Owens mansion was a palace built not just on wealth, but on appearances, and appearances demanded sacrifice. She placed the towels back in the cabinet, straightened her uniform, and whispered to herself the same words she'd been saying all morning. She was not broken. She was strong. She was not ashamed. She was human. She said it again, slower this time. She was not broken. She was strong. Upstairs, Adrienne Owens sipped black coffee from a porcelain cup, staring out at the swimming pool. His assistant, Marcus, stood nearby, shifting nervously. Sir, there's been talk, Marcus said carefully. About the maid. Adrienne didn't turn around. What kind of talk? The usual. The staff are saying she. I know what they are saying, Adrienne interrupted. And you can tell them to keep their mouths shut. Marcus nodded quickly. Yes, sir. But Adrienne's tone wasn't just about control. It carried guilt, frustration, and something else he couldn't quite name. He wasn't supposed to care. He wasn't supposed to remember the look on her face. But he did. Her eyes haunted him, wide, brown, full of fear and something purer than anything he'd seen in years. By noon, the mansion was alive with footsteps and chatter. The charity guests had left. The hallways smelled of coffee, polished wood, and quiet tension. Amora moved silently, like a ghost. She hoped she could avoid him forever, finish her shift, apologize to Madame Bisi, maybe even quit before things got worse. But fate had other plans. She turned a corner, and there he was. Adrienne Owens, in a crisp navy blue kaftan, the fabric gleaming against his brown skin, gold cufflinks catching the light. She froze. Her breath caught. Her tray of folded napkins almost slipped from her hands. He saw her immediately. Miss Johnson. His voice wasn't angry. Not anymore. It was calm, measured, the kind of calm that hides a storm. Amora swallowed. Good afternoon, sir. He nodded slightly. Walk with me. She hesitated. Sir. I said walk with me. They walked down the long corridor toward the back garden, the sound of their footsteps echoing through marble and silence. Adrienne stopped near the rose bushes, hands in his pockets. The air smelled of salt and sea, the Lagos breeze moving gently through the glass doors. You've been avoiding me, he said finally. Her eyes lowered. I didn't want to cause more trouble, sir. You didn't cause trouble. It was an accident. Then why is everyone laughing? She asked quietly. Adrienne turned his gaze toward the ocean. For a moment, he didn't speak. Then, softly, he said, because people like to destroy what they don't understand. Her eyes lifted to his. Amora, he said, her name rolling off his tongue like something sacred. You didn't do anything wrong. The words landed deep, deeper than he expected, deeper than she wanted. She looked away, blinking fast. Thank you, sir. He smiled faintly, a small, almost invisible curve of his lips. Next time, just knock before you enter a door, okay? That almost made her laugh. Almost. I'll never make that mistake again, she said, her voice trembling slightly. I hope not, he replied, but his tone was lighter now, teasing, not cruel. And for the first time since that awful night, Amora breathed a little easier. But neither of them noticed the shadow standing by the window, Marcus, the assistant, phone in hand, recording their every move. He watched, smirked, and whispered to himself, let's see how long before this becomes news. Amora returned to her chores, unaware that the worst storm was yet to come. And Adrienne, standing by the rose garden, didn't yet know that the very people he trusted were about to test his loyalty in ways he never imagined. Because in the Owens mansion, whispers didn't die, they spread. And soon, those whispers would become the wildfire that could burn everything he cared about. Family, are you still with us? If this story has touched your heart so far, please subscribe. Through every twist and heartbreak, we share one mission: to remind the world that love, no matter where it starts, is never a mistake. The rain came without warning. One moment the sky was a gentle gray, and the next, thunder cracked, lightning flashed, and heaven opened its mouth wide. Inside Owen's mansion, chaos followed. Windows slammed shut. Maids ran to pull down the curtains. The sound of heavy rain beat against the glass like thousands of impatient hands. Amara was in the courtyard, gathering freshly washed linens from the outdoor line when it started. The first drops felt like warnings, cold against her arms. Then came the downpour, wild, merciless, unrelenting. "Chinique," she gasped, holding the basket over her head as she sprinted toward shelter. But the nearest door wouldn't open. Locked. So she ran across the courtyard again, soaked through, hair plastered to her skin, her breath coming fast. Then she saw it, the old greenhouse by the garden. She pushed the door open and stumbled inside, dripping water everywhere, her uniform clinging to her body like a second skin. She stood there, shivering. The glass walls trembled under the assault of rain. The air was heavy with the scent of wet earth, roses, and something else, something almost electric. She closed her eyes and whispered to herself. She was not broken. She was brave. She was not lost. She was alive. "Amora." The voice came from behind her, low, warm, unmistakable. She turned. Adrienne Owens stood in the doorway, also soaked from head to toe. His navy blue shirt was drenched, clinging to his chest. His hair fell across his forehead in messy curls, droplets sliding down his jawline. "Sir," she breathed. "You'll catch a cold," he said, stepping closer. "You shouldn't be out here." "I was just trying to save the linens," she replied softly. "Didn't realize the storm would be this bad." He took off his jacket, dark, heavy, smelling faintly of mint and rain, and placed it gently around her shoulders. "There," he said quietly. "Better?" She nodded, clutching it tight. "Yes, sir. Thank you." The silence that followed was soft but alive. The rain pounded above them, a wild rhythm that drowned out the world. For a moment, they just stood there, two people from different worlds, breathing the same air, trapped in the same storm. Then he reached out. Slowly, carefully. A single raindrop slid down her cheek. He brushed it away with his thumb, eyes never leaving hers. She froze. Their eyes locked, his dark and searching, hers wide and trembling. Something deep, wordless, passed between them. The sound of rain faded into the background. And before either of them could stop it, before sense could overrule heart, their lips met. It was a fleeting kiss. Soft, shocking, like lightning, blinding and brief but powerful enough to split the world in two. Then both of them froze. I didn't mean," Adrienne started. "I know," Amara whispered, her voice shaking. "We should forget it happened." But neither moved. Neither looked away. The moment hung between them like a fragile secret, beautiful and dangerous. Outside, thunder rolled again, echoing their confusion. Adrienne stepped back, running a hand through his wet hair. "You're right," he said quietly. "We should forget it." But he didn't sound convinced. He turned to leave, pausing by the door. For a second, he almost looked back, but didn't. He couldn't. And Amora, standing there with his jacket still around her shoulders, whispered to herself. She was not broken. She was awake. She was not dreaming. She was feeling. The next morning, the mansion buzzed again. The storm had passed, but whispers had not. "Did you see Olga Adrienne's jacket on Amora yesterday?" "N." She even came back soaked and smiling. "Ha! This girl is playing with fire." Every corner seemed to breathe gossip. Every corridor carried her name. Amora moved quietly, keeping her head down, trying to disappear. But the harder she tried, the more visible she became. Because the truth, even when hidden, has a way of shining through silence. Upstairs, Adrienne sat at his desk, staring at the city skyline beyond the rain-streaked glass. He'd told himself it was nothing. He'd told himself it was a mistake. But why did he keep remembering the way she looked at him? Why did his heart race when he heard her voice in the hallway? He sighed, leaning back in his chair. "This can't happen," he muttered. "It just can't." But deep down, he knew it already had. That storm changed everything. For Amora, it awakened something she had buried beneath years of survival. For Adrienne, it tore open a door he thought was locked forever. And for both of them, it was the beginning of a love the world would soon try to destroy. Hello family. If you're still with us in this story, thank you. Please subscribe. We tell stories that remind the world that love isn't always neat. Sometimes, it's messy, complicated, and born from the most unexpected places. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from, and let's keep growing this family of dreamers together. It started with whispers. It always starts with whispers. By Monday morning, those whispers had turned into rumors, and by evening, rumors had become fire. The Owens mansion was burning, not with flames, but with gossip. She was seen in the greenhouse with ogre Adrienne. They said he gave her his jacket. My sister's friend works in the kitchen. She said they kissed. Each story changed shape as it traveled, twisting truth into entertainment. And in a world where power meets envy, lies move faster than light. Amara felt the stares everywhere. In the kitchen, in the hallway, even at church on Sunday. She walked with her head down, shoulders tight, praying silently for peace. But peace had already left the mansion. Madam Bisi called her into the office that afternoon. "Amora Johnson," she began, her tone sharp but tired. "Do you have something to tell me?" Amora shook her head quickly. "No, Ma." Bisi sighed. "You're a good girl. Hardworking. But the kind of stories flying around now, they can destroy reputations. You know this, right?" "Yes, Ma. I didn't do anything wrong, Ma." Bisi studied her face for a long moment, then lowered her voice. "Then pray those stories die fast. Because the young master's assistant, that man has a big mouth and a small heart." Upstairs, Adrienne faced his own storm. Marcus stood by the door, looking smug. "Sir, the staff are talking. It's not good for the company, or your image." Adrienne rubbed his temples. "You mean my personal life is now boardroom gossip?" "Not gossip, sir, perception." He hated that word. Perception. The lie that ruled the truth. Marcus continued, lowering his tone. "You should probably distance yourself from her. Quietly. Before this becomes a scandal." Adrienne turned, eyes sharp. "And what if I don't?" Marcus smirked. "Then you'll lose more than just reputation. You'll lose control." The words hit harder than expected. Control, the one thing Adrienne had always prized above all else. He said nothing. But his silence was an answer Marcus already understood. That night, Amora packed her few belongings. A single suitcase. A folded note. A heart heavier than anything she'd ever carried. She left her uniform neatly folded on the bed. The same bed where she'd whispered to herself. She was not broken. She was strong. Now, her voice shook as she said it again. She was not broken. She was done. She was not leaving. She was surviving. She walked out quietly, the mansion lights flickering behind her. Outside, the Lagos sky was heavy with rain again, because somehow, fate always chose rain when hearts broke. When Adrienne found out she was gone, panic set in like fire. He didn't think, he just moved. He grabbed his car keys, his jacket, and drove into the storm. Down 3rd Mainland Bridge. Through Soyulir's busy streets. Past blinking traffic lights and shouting vendors. He didn't care about the horns, the mud, or the rain that blurred his windshield. He only cared about one thing, finding her. He finally did. At a small roadside stall lit by a flickering bulb, Amara stood beside her mother, selling puff puff and zobo to late-night passers-by. Her face glowed with rain and tears. When she saw him step out of that sleek black car, her heart stopped. "You shouldn't be here," she said softly. He took a step closer. "I can't stay away." She shook her head. "You don't belong in my world." "Maybe," he said. "I never belonged in mine." The rain poured harder, soaking them both. People were staring now, but Adrienne didn't care. He looked at her like a man seeing light after darkness. "Amora, I don't want you to come back as staff," he said, his voice breaking. "I want you to come back as the woman I can't live without." Her lips parted, trembling. "Don't say what you don't mean, sir." "I've said a lot of things I didn't mean in my life," he replied. "But not this. Never this." The silence that followed was louder than thunder. Rain dripped from his lashes. Her hands trembled at her sides. Then, finally, she stepped forward, slow, hesitant, fragile. "Why me?" she whispered. "Because," he said. "You're the only one who ever looked at me and saw a man, not a millionaire." And under the rain, she broke, not from weakness, but release. She sobbed quietly against his chest, the storm wrapping them in sound and mercy. That night, the rain washed away more than dust. It washed away pride, guilt, and fear. But the world they lived in hadn't changed. The world was still watching, still waiting to judge. Because when a billionaire falls for a maid, love isn't the end of the story. It's just the beginning of the war. The sky over Lagos glowed gold that morning, the kind of golden that feels like a promise. The storm had passed. But in the Owen's mansion, something deeper had changed. The halls that once carried gossip now carried laughter. The air that once felt heavy now smelled of roses and peace. And down those same marble corridors walked Amara Johnson, not in a maid's uniform, but in a graceful navy blue dress that swayed softly with each step. Every head turned. Every whisper fell silent. Her hair shimmered in the sunlight. Her posture was proud, steady, unshaken. The girl who once ran in shame now walked in strength. She was not broken. She was reborn. Adrienne stood by the grand staircase, dressed in a cream-colored embroidered, gold embroidery catching the light. When their eyes met, time itself seemed to pause. He smiled, not the smile of a billionaire used to getting what he wants, but the smile of a man who had finally found what money couldn't buy. "You look breathtaking," he said softly. "And you look forgiven," she replied, her tone teasing but tender. He chuckled. "Fair enough." Then he took her hand and led her to the garden. The same garden where roses once heard confessions now bloomed brighter than ever. Rows of guests, rich and poor, staff and elite, sat side by side, watching. A white arch stood in the center, decorated with orchids, lilies, and soft blue ribbons. In front of it was a plaque, covered with velvet cloth. Adrienne turned to the crowd, his voice steady, clear. "Everyone, thank you for being here today," he began. "For years, this mansion represented everything I was: power, pride, and isolation. But then someone walked through a wrong door and showed me something better: humility, compassion, and truth." The crowd smiled, murmured, leaned in. He continued, his eyes on Amora. "Today, we open something new, something that will outlive both of us." He pulled the velvet cloth away. Beneath it, the words gleamed in gold. "The Amora Hope Foundation, for domestic workers across Nigeria." The audience gasped, then applauded. Amora's eyes filled with tears. He turned to her, voice trembling slightly. "You gave me a reason to lead differently," he said. "And to love without shame." She smiled through tears. "And you taught me that I was never small." The officiant cleared his throat gently, and everyone laughed. It was time. As they exchanged vows, the mansion's walls seemed to remember everything: the whispers, the shame, the rain, and now, the redemption. Adrienne's voice shook as he said, "You saw me beyond my wealth." Amora's voice broke as she replied, "And you saw me beyond my uniform." Then, beneath the Lagos sun, with petals falling like blessings from above, they kissed. Not by accident this time, but by destiny. The guests rose in applause. Mama Bisi wiped tears from her eyes. Even Marcus, standing at the back with guilt heavy on his face, bowed his head quietly. And the same staff who once whispered behind Amora's back now whispered something new. She did it. She made it. She turned a mistake into a miracle. That evening, the city lights shimmered across the lagoon. On the mansion balcony, Amora leaned against Adrienne's shoulder, the sound of gentle waves floating in from afar. "Do you ever think about that day?" she asked softly. He smiled. "The day you entered the wrong bathroom." She laughed. "The day fate decided to embarrass me publicly." He chuckled. Maybe fate just needed a dramatic entrance. They sat in silence for a while, watching the sun fade into twilight. "Amora," he said finally, "I used to think love was something you planned, perfect timing, perfect people. But you taught me that love is messy, inconvenient, and uncontrollable." She smiled, eyes glistening. "And still worth it." He nodded. "Still worth it." As night fell, the mansion lights glowed like stars. Inside, laughter echoed, the scent of roses filled the halls, and two souls, once divided by class, pride, and circumstance, had finally found their forever. Because sometimes, the doors we enter by mistake are the ones that lead us home.